The United States of America is a powerful country in the world. Different cultures coexist, communicate, and support each other, forming a cultural melting pot. As an Asian, I enjoy living in the United States. It offers world-class education, a pleasant climate, open-minded people, and diverse cultures. I love the life here, and I love this land deeply. However, 2020 has been an extraordinary year. The United States and the whole world were about to face perhaps the biggest and most incomparable challenge in a century. In March, in the middle of a seemingly normal spring, schools suddenly closed. After that, shopping malls closed, restaurants closed, many businesses closed, and people were told to stay home. At first, I too made light of the situation.
My first impression of the coronavirus was that it was just a flu. It was just a little more powerful than a regular flu. I didn't pay much attention to it, and the descriptions in the news broadcasts were basically that you would get a little more ill, you'd feel worse than the flu, but I didn't get the sense that it was anything that was going to be threatening to our lives or our lifestyle or to our country or anything like that. I had no idea that it was going to be as serious as it turned out to be.
But unbeknownst to all, a new coronavirus, which can only be seen under a microscope, had already snuck into our world. This virus is COVID-19. Just like the movies, the virus spreads by way of microscopic droplets and human-to-human contact. Its infectious power and transmission rate are simply unimaginable.
COVID-19 has a receptor in the human body called ACE2. The ACE2 receptor is involved in blood pressure. A lot of the drugs that you take for blood pressure target the renin-angiotensin system. The virus binds to the ACE2 receptor to get into cells. It can't function without being able to get into cells. It turns out that the most dense population of ACE2 receptors are on the lining of your arteries. And because of that, the virus causes arterial damage, which predisposes you to blood clotting, heart attacks, and strokes. This is the reason why we're seeing heart attacks and strokes in a younger population at this point, because the virus is so broadly damaging to the body. So you can think of the heart, the lungs, the brain, the kidneys, the liver, all the organs that have more blood vessels than the rest. That is why we're seeing the symptom complex that we see.
The COVID-19 pandemic has seriously affected the progress of globalization. It disrupted the global supply chain and impacted the economic stability of all countries. A butterfly in the Amazon rainforest flaps its wings, and 2 weeks later, there's a tornado in Texas unlike anything the world has ever seen. The spread of COVID-19 shows that globalization has promoted the rapid transmission of diseases worldwide and has become a systemic risk. At the beginning of this pandemic, everyone flocked to the supermarket and emptied the shelves. For a time, there was a shortage of masks and medical supplies. Even toilet paper was out of stock. A lot of people, like you and me, hoarding goods. I also rushed to the supermarket and made purchases. With the increase in the number of COVID patients, there is a serious shortage of medical staff and medical facilities. All medical professionals were on the front line to rescue and to treat patients. Many medical workers also gave their precious lives to save others, and are still giving their lives to this day. The questions regarding how to test, diagnose, and treat the new coronavirus became a new problem.
So the swab test is done through your nasal passage into the back of your throat or the nasal area or with spit. And what it's doing is it's looking at the genetic material of the virus. And as I said earlier, it cannot distinguish between living and dead virus. The antibody test is detecting your body's response to infection and confers a level of immunity on you. And so one is measuring directly the viral material, the other is measuring the body's response to the virus.
Like millions of Americans, I took a test for COVID-19 as well. I also followed the stay-at-home order and have been living in my own little world every day. Whenever I go out, I always wear a mask. Whether it's news reports or articles, the positive effect of wearing masks is quite discernible.
We're all wearing our masks, we're being appropriate. Even if you don't believe that you shouldn't wear a mask and that you have the right to not wear a mask, how about being considerate to our fellow man and everyone around us? It's easy to be considerate, whether you believe it or not. So let's be kind and nice to one and each other and be respectful.
United States, I think it was a big thing to demand people to wear masks, which seems pretty reasonable right now. And just to wash your hands, you come into the house, you leave, you go to a restaurant.
With the Royal Society of St. George and with the United Nations Association of the Coachella Valley, we have donated thousands of surgical masks and gloves.
Other than me, my friends, teachers, even celebrities uphold the measures of staying in and self-quarantining when necessary.
After about 4 weeks at home and not moving, I realized this is not good. This is not good, and it may not change for a long, long time.
But a few months later, this new virus that a lot of people thought might be easily defeated has raged on even more throughout the world, with no end in sight. At the time of this video, COVID-19 has infected 27 million people worldwide, and 880,000 people died from it, according to the Worldometer. The numbers are still rising. We can't help but keep thinking about what went wrong and what did we do wrong.
I think that if you compare the US to the rest of the world, I would say that we have not really done that well. And I think that, when you see the latest statistics that just came out, where they talk about that we are having 22% of the world's death, even though United States represents 4% of the population. And I think the reason is very simple. I think that we don't have a coordinated effort in America like they have in other countries. when in South Korea or in Germany or in Austria or in France or wherever you go, I mean, there's one voice. I mean, the Prime Minister says this is what we do. Everyone stays home from the schools are closed. He says that everyone has to wear a mask. Every company has to close down. And there's a uniformity there throughout the nation. In America, we have different laws. We don't have just one federal law. We have, state laws, and then we have, city laws. So, it's like stuff that doesn't really make sense. It's not scientifically kind of designed. It's more politically driven, the whole thing. And so this is why we are falling behind in the progress.
COVID hit us much harder than it had to. We have just 4% of the world's population, 25% of the world's COVID cases. Our unemployment rate is more than twice as high as South Korea's, 2.5 times the United Kingdom's, more than 3 times Japan's. Donald Trump says we're leading the world. Well, we are the only major industrial economy to have its unemployment rate tripled.
While COVID-19 is still ravaging Europe and America, in Asian countries such as China and Japan, the number of confirmed cases has been trending down. China's practice against COVID-19 has been affirmed by the World Health Organization and is worthy of learning from. China's strict lockdown and isolation measures have effectively reduced the number of COVID cases. In Europe and America, it is not that simple to just lock down cities and states.
China, where they were really successful at locking down, because I think the government is a stronger government in that way, so they can really get people to stay home and lock in blocks and regions. In the United States, it's a little bit different country. It's not built in either of those ways. I think this is just built more of use an individual, and government was there just to support. So I think people weren't as ready to listen.
Pandemic is something that is terrible for people living in the city, because people are all living on top of each other, and there's too many people in the cities, and the disease is carrying too far and too fast.
In the United States, people haven't been as vigilant. Unable to bear social isolation, they went out to eat, to travel, to shop, and to go to the beach. This carelessness enabled the virus to flare up again and again and again, beyond control.
Americans are, for the most part, independent folks. We don't like to be told what to do. We're Americans, we're free, loving people, and we don't like to be told what to do and when to do it and how to do it. We do what we want to do because that's what makes America great. And so when there are orders from government to say, you can't do this, you can't do that, after a while it begins to wear on you, and you start to think that you've got to do what you got to do. So we see the people in parts of Orange County, for example, going out and going to the beach and defying all the orders because they just feel like they have to do what they have to do. That's part of America, and that's part of what we have to deal with. But I think that anxiousness and anxiety and being cooped up for a long, long time, I think people just needed to get out.
I think they want to be, free or do their own thing, but I don't know if this is a good scenario to express your freedom and stuff. This is a moment you need to listen to the government and your leaders and really stay home and wear your mask and be a responsible person.
Enough is enough. We've done it. We've flattened the curve, and it's time to ease ourselves back into normal life. And it seemed that the government took a tougher and tougher stance. I'm talking about local government, took a tougher and tougher stance. And it became increasingly difficult to be patient with it all when we started to see people kind of venture out, come to the beach, go to things that they would normally do, and there was a crackdown. I lived near the beach, and I saw them arresting a guy on a paddleboard. I thought, that's ridiculous. A paddleboard, he's 100 yards away from everybody else. Why are they arresting this poor guy? And they put him in cuffs and put him in a car and fined him. I thought that was extreme. That's extreme government overreach, just my feeling. And I felt that at that point we needed to be a little freer. We'd done our job. We'd been in quarantine for almost 2 months, and so it clearly needed to be time to move on. But yeah, I wasn't the only one that was angry. I think a lot of my friends and family were angry about the continued stay-at-home work order.
I miss just living life and going out seeing a friend, going to a restaurant, going to a movie theater, or just going anywhere and just see a bunch of people. And I think that's probably the same in all countries. Sweden or China, in the United States. It's the human part we all are missing, and I think to get to there we need to be very responsible.
Americans have a sense of entitlement that to me is very unattractive. Yes, we have the freedom, but yes, we also have the heart to be considerate to our neighbor. I wear my mask out of respect. I wear my mask in case I have been exposed. I wear my mask for the old people. I wear my mask for the people that have weakened immune systems. I don't question my rights as an American. I question what is right to do for our people.
That if you look at what's going on and just look at some of the film clips that you've seen of people congregating, often without masks, of being in crowds and jumping over and avoiding and not paying attention to the guidelines that we very carefully put out, we're going to continue to be in a lot of trouble, and there's going to be a lot of hurt if that does not stop.
So the update is this. My wife Lauren, as well as my 2 baby girls and myself, we have all tested positive for COVID-19.
This morning I got some test results back for coronavirus and it came back positive.
I would have took this thing more seriously, and I hope everyone else going to do so, because we can do it together.
I'm asymptomatic. I don't have any symptoms. I could walk down the street if it wasn't public knowledge that I was sick, you wouldn't know it, and I think that's the scariest part about this virus is that, you may seem fine, be fine, and you never know who you may be talking to, who they're going home to.
Ever since being diagnosed, I have been more like America's dad than ever before, since no one wants to be around me very long, and I make people uncomfortable.
At the time of this video, 6.5 million Americans tested positive for COVID-19, and close to 190,000 people have died from the virus.
It's a terrible situation. We're all concerned. It's very frightening. I think that we have in the last 100 years had four pandemics. This pandemic, as with all the other ones, are very dangerous because people have not been exposed to this kind of virus before. So it's all new to all of us. And it's just tragic to see all the bodies that have had to go into the storage units, the frozen storage units, and people say that it's not true, that it's not a real pandemic, that it's a hoax. And then that creates tension too.
Facing such daunting figures, we are more afraid, more worried, and more angry. As an individual living free in the United States, what can we do to help slow the spread of COVID-19?
I think you as an individual need to find a good place in your heart and your soul, who you are, and then try to live that. I think most of us knows what is right and what is wrong, but not necessarily we all express it and show that to everybody else as often as we should.
What we saw visually in clips and in photographs of individuals in the community doing an all or none phenomenon, which is dangerous. And by all or none, I mean either be locked down or open up in a way where you see people at bars not wearing masks, not avoiding crowds, not paying attention to physical distancing. I think we need to emphasize the responsibility that we have both as individuals and as part of a societal effort to end the epidemic, that we all have to play a part in that.
It is extremely important that we wear masks, that we have social distancing, that we wash our hands, and we respect one another at all times.
We must unite starting with each of us. Go out less. Practice good hygiene, like washing hands frequently. Avoid touching the mouth and nose with our hands. And practice social distancing by keeping 6 feet apart from each other at all times. Clean and disinfect objects and surfaces. And be sure to wear a mask when out and about. We need to learn from Asian countries. Unite as one and endure these difficult times together. This pandemic has given each of us a lot of important revelations.
We've learned are several things. One is that we were ill prepared for a pandemic, and it has nothing to do with politics. It has to do with the fact that we never think these things can happen in this country, but they did. I think we've mounted a fairly good response to it, given all of the speed with which it interrupted. But the other thing that we learned is that people who have existing illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, obesity, chronic lung disease, heart transplants are at extreme risk for any epidemic. And my whole focus has been on preventive cardiology. And I think that in order to improve the lives of people in this country, we need to focus on getting rid of what these are called comorbidities. We need to get rid of those. We need to get people healthier so that when a pandemic does occur, their body's much more able to withstand that and they won't end up in the hospital or die. So, what we're going to do after this is we're going to focus on prevention and lifestyle modification in people to improve their health so that they are in a much better position should something like this occur in the future.
And I think we all hopefully reflect a little bit who we are and what we can do better to build good lives. And not just for ourselves, but again for bigger, for the future of our children and their children. Big responsibilities.
I think the challenges that we have to face ahead in this global crisis is actually something that can make us all better, because for the first time we are united in a bad way. The world is united by this virus. And I think that if we can all pull together and start being more responsible for ourselves and not looking to our governments to help us, I think we have to take better care of our neighbors, our friends, even our enemies. We're all the same. We don't have a different color. We don't have a different name. We don't have anything different. We all have the same humanness. And I think that if anything good comes out of this, that we become a more sensitive people and more kind and caring people too.
Being closed up and slowing down our activities actually gives us the opportunity to rethink both the meaning of life and the meaning of family. This pandemic has taught us that human beings are a community of life. Nature shows that the elements of all things converge because of love and separate because of hate. Crises give us the ability to reinterpret the boundaries of life. As an Asian, I have America in my heart. I call on everyone to believe in the process and fight this virus together.
That we must come together as a nation. We must come together. Democrats and Republicans must realize that the other side are not the villains. Just because you have a different ideology or just because you see things differently, you have a different background, it makes no difference. You have to sit together and talk and discuss and debate and work things out and come to conclusions and fix things. We have so many things to do. I mean, just alone, if you think about the infrastructure that we have to build in America, we haven't built any roads or bridges are falling apart. And we have a third world country electrical grid system. For instance, we have over 200,000 people dying every year because of pollution in America, 7 million worldwide. The immigration system is horrible. We still don't have everyone insured. Those things cannot be done by one party. The best things come out when you have both parties work together, because then it's long lasting. Then it's not one of those bogus executive orders, but it is then comes from everyone coming together and saying, this is the direction we go. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to have a vision, and we got to come together, and we got to solve some of those big issues.
Together, we can get through this. It's not only a slogan, it's the absolute truth.
Be responsible, be smart, but above all, understand that only with solidarity we can defeat this disease.
More than anything, this pandemic has finally torn back the curtain on the idea that so many of the folks in charge know what they're doing. A lot of them aren't even pretending to be in charge. If the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. With everything suddenly feeling like it's up for grabs, this is your time to seize the initiative.
As an individual of the global community, there is no enemy between people. COVID-19 is our common enemy. Hand in hand, we shall overcome COVID-19. Humanity is great. The character of humanity is strong. A brand new chapter will be written by humanity.